It seems to think that things are working. And I think things are working. I gotta pop out the chat so I can see it more easily. Okay, there we go. Alrighty. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to those of you who live in those particular areas. It's an every other Sunday show. It's in the United States, it's a holiday weekend in that tomorrow, being Monday, is Memorial Day. And so there's a lot of picnicking and cooking out and things like that, and shindigs as such going on this weekend. Currently it is, I don't know, 180 degrees. All right, it's not really. It's going to be a high of 92 Fahrenheit, which is hot here. You remember about 2 or 3 episodes ago, which would have been 4 weeks to 6 weeks ago, when there was more than a foot of snow that it was falling during the show? Yeah, now we've passed that. It is warm. It is warm, and so yeah, I think a lot of those big outdoor parties are going to end up being indoors in the air conditioning, most likely. So, what have we got going on here? We've got Australia. We've got Norway. I need to move my chat window because it's covering that. There we go. Okay, Philippines. Morning from muggy Louisiana. That's the thing, is it's not been super muggy yet. Knock on wood. So I got that going for me, which is nice. Lots of thunderstorms in Germany. Dave says he's priming some minis, and I look like a Mad Max gimp with my 3M mask. It's a good idea, honestly. I mean, if you're outdoors, it's not as big of a necessity. If you're priming, well, I don't think you should prime indoors. We'll talk a little bit more about priming later, because I'm in terrain mode, as I've mentioned in the description for this video. So yeah. Jez Hunt says, afternoon, Adam. It's a bank holiday here in the UK. Long weekend. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Tijuana, Florida, Halifax, Nova Scotia. Esther says, hi, Uncle Adam. A few weeks ago, I mentioned that Game 4 helped me find someone local to play with, and we played our second game together last night. Well, good. I'm really glad to hear it. That's the whole point, really, of the app. That's what we're trying to do, is to get more people playing more games. So I'm glad that's working out. We just actually launched the newest version. We launched 3.0 Friday? I think it was Friday. And we've added some new functionality for groups and clubs. One of the things that groups and clubs can do now is that they can put in custom locations. Like right now, every time you want to have an event of any kind in Game 4, it has to be at a game store. Well, groups and clubs now, if they're subscribers, so you have to become a subscribed group or club, which costs $5 a month, but it gives you a bunch of benefits. One of the biggest benefits is you can then say, I want the back room at this pub to be one of our custom locations. And then so you submit it, we check to make sure that it's really a pub and not somebody's, murder basement or whatever. And then we put it in there so that when anybody in the group wants to have an event there, they can just select backroom of said pub or whatever. And then you don't have to have because we were getting groups and clubs that were telling us we don't have our meetings in a store. We have them in a church basement. We have them at a restaurant. We have them in a lot of different places. So we wanted to give that option. But because it's not necessarily, it takes a bit more work for us to have to put in the verified public location, the custom location. That's why it's part of the subscription model. So anyway, all that being said, new things launched, and it's been working out nice so far. So that's good. It's muggy in New York. Let's see here. VJ Morph says it's finally starting to cool down over there in Australia because they're heading into winter, whereas we're heading into summer. It's the way that the whole globe thing works. What else have we got? Cork, Ireland. David's stuck at work. Jeffrey Dempster says, good morning, Adam. Primarch Sanguinius is in Canada. I had no idea. Australia. What else have we got here? What's the app called? It's called Game 4. It's GAMEFOR. You can look it up on Google, and you'll be able to find the website. Yeah, it's been working. It's for both Android and iOS. And I'm going to be doing a bunch of traveling again coming up soon because of it. This past Thursday, so 4 days ago, we were in Madison, Wisconsin, at the ACD Game Day. Now, I've gone to ACD Game Day many years in the past with a friend of mine who owns a store. So ACD is a distributor. They are the companies that buy the games from the manufacturers and sell them to the stores, so that the stores don't have to call every manufacturer to get games and stuff like that. That's what distributors do. So ACD has an event every year where store owners all come and they take seminars and stuff. And then there's a trade show where they can walk around and talk to different publishers and manufacturers and service companies like us. Because we don't make any games. We just, we make things that help stores get more people in, hopefully. So, so we had a booth there this year. Like I said, normally I go with a friend of mine, and we, hang out, and because he's a store owner and doesn't want to hang out there by himself, so I go along. His marketing manager. Anyway, So we were there. We had a booth, and we talked to a lot of store owners, and got really positive feedback, and it was really good. So that was cool. This upcoming Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I'm going to be at Nexus Game Fair, which is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we're going to have the Game 4 folks. We're going to have a booth there. So that will be, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if you're in Milwaukee and you're going to the Nexus Game Fair, stop by, say hi. We'll be there. And then the week after that, on Saturday and Sunday, is then TMX, which is the Tabletop Minions Expo here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And so Game 4 will be there as well. I will, of course, be there because I'm running the convention. It's my thing. But we'll have a table as well there, and we'd be just talking to people and stuff like that. The next Every Other Sunday show that you see will be from TMX. I'm going to make sure that it works better, hopefully, this year. However, it will probably only be an hour instead of 2, because there will be all kinds of other stuff going on, and it just might be easier to do it that way, to have a kind of a slightly shorter version. So, FYI. Moderator Matt will be there in-house, so that'll be cool. We'll both possibly be on the screen at the same time, so you'll know that we're not the same person. That's fun. And there'll be a bunch of other people there as well, hopefully. So anyway, that's that. And then the weekend after that, which is like the June 13th to the 17th, we're going to be at Origins. Now, originally I had said that Game 4 was going to have a booth at Origins, and then I said, okay, no, I guess we've been told that we're not, but I'm just going to go. And then actually a week ago today, we got an email saying, oh, hey, you're off the waiting list. You're going to have a booth. So now we are going to have a booth at Origins. So if you're at Origins, which is in Columbus, Ohio, it's the second largest gaming convention in the country. You've got Gen Con, and then you've got Origins. If you're going to be at that convention, stop by the booth and say hi. We'll be there. So I was told what the booth number was, but I have forgotten it. Oh, well. Anyway, probably not that important. But yeah, so check that out. See what you think. It's going to be a lot of travel, and prepping for that, I've been wanting to work on and get a bunch of terrain primed while it's warm but not humid. Because I do like, with terrain, I do like to generally try to prime rattle can, just because it's kind of faster, and I think that it sticks better sometimes for longer term wear. Like, you're a little bit more careful with your models than you might be with your terrain. So you can easily airbrush prime your models because you're not going to be banging them around as much, whereas terrain, I think, needs to be a little bit more sturdy as far as the paint surface needs to be. So that's why I have a tendency to varnish it a lot harder. I have a tendency to, or not harder, but, thicker. I have a tendency also to try to use rattle can for the primer on that situation if I can, just because I think it sticks a little bit better over time. So anyway, oops, I almost spilled my coffee. All that being said, what else have we got here? Moderator Matt says it's in the 90s in Chicago. Yeah, it's gonna be there real soon up here too. It's already warm in the house. I had to turn off the air conditioning because otherwise it makes this noise that you can hear over the microphone. So I might get a little moist as the time goes by, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. 12 Neef says I'll be at the Warhammer Cafe opening weekend. That's pretty cool. Down in Texas. It'll probably be warm there too. Just moving that. So yeah, JP Got Rocket says Origins. Yep, I'll be there. We'll have a booth, and so originally we were planning on having a booth, like I said. Then I was like, well, I'm just going to go because I haven't been there in years, more than 20 years. So I want to get some reconnaissance for next year. So I was planning on hanging out, just walking around and doing stuff. Now I'll be in the booth a lot, so that'll be fine. Because we want to, obviously talk to more people about stuff. But so yeah, it's going to be good. It's just that for the next 3.5 weeks, it's just going to be really busy. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. Jonas says, hey man, I played my first Age of Sigmar, or actually Age of Sagmar, but I like Age of Sigmar better, game last Tuesday and loved it. Played with my old Skaven army and have now started collecting Beastclaw Raiders, having a blast. Love from Sweden. Well, cool, man. I think that's cool. I mean, it's going to be changing a bit with the new Age of Sigmar 2.0, which is not what they're calling it, but that's what I'm calling it. So that'll be kind of interesting. It looks like they're going to be adding a bit more detail, a little bit more magic shenanigans and stuff like that, but I think it's going to be cool, so. TJ Menzies says, looking forward to Origins. Yeah, I am too. I haven't been there in forever. Iron Fang says, finished my Goliath gang. Wreck Age Minis up next. Yeah, we played with Wreck Age Minis. God, was it last weekend? Yeah, I think it was. Or was it 2 weekends? No, it was last weekend. Yeah, so Matt came up from Chicago to Oshkosh, and we got together and did a couple of battle reports, and which I think I talked a little bit about in the Patreon video that I did this past Sunday. Normally I do them on a Saturday. I do a just private Patreon only video once per month, and normally it's like on the whatever Saturday is closest to the 20th of the month. But this past Saturday, which was closest to the 20th of the month, Matt and I were doing bat reps, so I had to push it to Sunday. Anyway, we did some bat reps, and you'll be seeing the first one very soon, probably Friday. And we did stuff for Wreck Age, so you'll see a bunch of models in there as well. So that'll be cool. The Chronic Toast says, currently working on terrain for bolt action, doing some dry brushing. Not my favorite thing. Too many thunderstorms outside to prime. I don't mind dry brushing. I think it works out pretty well. Let's see here. Matthew Sears says, now to look up our Massachusetts packages sent to pinpoint your identity, Iron Fang. The moderator must know all. Well, I don't know that that's necessarily the case. Jesse Daniels says, yeah, it will be the 90s in Milwaukee. Yeah, it's just really, but like by Wednesday this week, it's going to be back down in the 70s. So we just got a bit of a warm snap right now. You'll get that from time to time. It's odd that it's in May where we're in the 90s, but what are you going to do? Paul Noxie says, I hobby in my loft. Freezing in winter, too hot in summer, never a median. Yeah, the nerd bunker, the basement downstairs, is too cold in the winter, but it's actually quite lovely in the summer. So I got that going for me, which is nice. I think that the new studio is going to be one of those things where it's going to be kind of chilly in the winter and kind of too warm in the summer. So we'll see how that goes. So far, it's been okay. I put up these big honking blackout drapes over the big giant 9-foot windows, so at least that should help it not get too hot in the summer. And when I go in there, I can turn on the air conditioning. It's not on all the time, especially when like nobody's in there using it. So that's not too bad. But yeah. Jesse Daniel asks, how was the ACD show? It was good. Like I said, it's mostly store owners walking around. It's not for the general public. But the store owners were very receptive to, they're really a lot of them. I mean, a lot of them had were telling us, oh yeah, I already used the app. I already used Game 4. Or else they've said, hey, some of my customers have been telling me about this. Tell me more about it. And so that helped out a lot too. Otherwise, I walked around and just talked to some different publishers and manufacturers and things like that. I stopped by the Games Workshop booth, but they were busy talking to a bunch of other people. They didn't have anything new really going on there. I mean, like last year at ACD, it was the first time they were showing off the Dark Imperium models in the public. Was at the ACD show in Madison, Wisconsin. Like that was the first time you'd seen them in the flesh. So I took a bunch of pictures and stuff like that, which you probably can see on my Instagram from last year, around May. But this year they didn't have anything new that they were showing off. They didn't have anything for Age of Sigmar. They were pushing Shadespire heavy because they know it's selling well. So like the whole booth was mostly just Shadespire stuff. But they didn't have anything new or anything like that. So I stopped at the Osprey booth and talked with Christian from Osprey. We talked about Gaslands. I'm going to be doing some Gaslands stuff. Actually, I bought some Matchbox cars at the grocery store yesterday. It's really weird to be able to buy the miniatures for your game at the grocery store for 80 cents a piece, and then know that you're going to like paint them up and put some bits on them and stuff like that, and then you're going to be good. So yeah, that's I'm looking forward to playing some Gaslands soon. It's very cool. What else have we got? Tyler Martin says, I've been getting into Infinity lately. Love this game. Any opinion on it? It's not for me. I'm glad that it's doing well here in America. And I know a lot of people who enjoy it. Sam's a fan. One of the only armies that he actually owns for a game that he plays anymore is for Infinity. I mean, he also has a couple of warbands now that he's done for, or at least one warband he's done for Shadespire. But yeah, but for otherwise he's got a nice Infinity army. Obviously, it's painted quite well, but it's a good size too. And that's the one game he still like plays sort of regularly. Sam's given me demos of it, and it just doesn't strike me. I don't know. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that it's kind of, I don't know. It's not for me. I don't know. The rules system is strange to me, and it's I don't know. I'm not sure what it is. The figures are also very difficult to build. I find at least some of the older ones where it's like 16 pieces and it's metal models. I know a bunch of the newer ones now are fewer pieces. So yeah. 12 Neef asks, will you accept challenges for bat reps? Gosh, I haven't even thought that far in advance. I mean, I've kicked around the idea. I don't know if someone wants to necessarily travel to the middle of Wisconsin just to be in a bat rep. But we can, it's something to think about. I don't know. I kind of really have to figure out how these are going to work. They're not going to be what you expect, I don't think. Or, I mean, they're not like everybody else's. Let's just say that. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. So, Gaddis Gaming says, good morning. Hey, Lee, how you doing? Andrew Watson says, I'm about to put the second coat on my Human Blood Bowl team. First time painting models. Nervous for when I need to be neater. I would not concern yourself with being, I mean, it's good to try to be neat when you start, certainly. But I don't think that it is a necessity that you do that. You know what I mean? Like, just get some paint on the models, and if you need to tidy some stuff up and kind of tweak some things and fix some things, that's fine. Understand that throwing some wash on top always helps kind of hide some faux pas. If you've got like green orc skin here, and then there's like the metal plates of their armor like here, right? Okay, if you get a little bit of green on the armor, or a little bit of vice versa, whatever, where they touch a little bit and it's not a perfect sharp line, when you throw some wash over that, it will kind of hide where the colors have maybe gotten onto one side or the other a little bit, because the wash, you put it on, and the idea of it is it gets into the crevices and the joins and things like that, and then it's darker there. So if there's a little bit of green on the silver or silver on the green, hopefully the dark part of the wash will get in there. And you can always just slop it on everywhere, but you can always just go back and just try to get wash just in the crevices a little bit, in those places where the two pieces join maybe, and that can help to sometimes hide some flaws. So understand that when people refer to like GW washes, like the Agrax Earthshade, which is the brown color, or Nuln Oil, which is the black color, some people refer to that as liquid talent. I would not say that that's a bad thing. I think that it's something that really can help, When you look at models the way they were painted 30 years ago versus the way they're painted now, you can see the difference. So anything that helps newer painters get something that they're happy with quicker, I think is fine. You know, there are people who have been painting for years and years and years, and have now put themselves into a situation where they're like, they don't even like to use washes anymore, and that's totally valid. But for me, as someone who's been painting for maybe, I don't know, 10 years and not great at it, but okay, I still use washes all the time because I think that they speed things up, they're quick, they just work really well. So don't be afraid to use washes, and don't worry if your first models aren't perfect. That's because you're just starting, and that's the way that pretty much the entire world works. When you first started something, it takes a little bit of work to get better. That's the way it works. Chronic Toast did something about their group. The Chronic Toast. Yeah. Gaslands is the next game our group will be jumping into, along with the reboot of BattleTech. Yeah, I just heard about the reboot of BattleTech actually, like last week. One of the guys at work was like, "Hey, did you hear about this?" And so yeah, they're completely rebooting BattleTech. So okay, a little bit of history. BattleTech's been around for a long time. It was originally made by a company called FASA. BattleTech is big giant robots with dudes inside and ladies shooting other dudes and ladies. And it's in the future. Natch. Anyway, so fast forward, FASA goes out of business, and a company called Catalyst Labs? Anyway, they get the license and they start making what they call classic BattleTech, which is basically kind of the old BattleTech. In between those two, WizKids makes a clicks game called Mech War, I think, which is based off of BattleTech, but it's pre-painted plastic minis with the clicky bases and stuff. That's fine. Anyway, so classic BattleTech comes back, and now it's basically the old game, which at this point now in 2018, there's a ton of bookwork that you have to use to play BattleTech, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So in the idea of streamlining, then they made a game called First Strike or Alpha Strike. BattleTech First Strike? BattleTech Alpha Strike? I don't know if Mac is here. He would know. Anyway, so Diesel. I don't know what his deal is. Anyway, so then now they've decided to, I think, just sort of streamline classic BattleTech and call it regular. No, they don't call it regular BattleTech. They just call it BattleTech now. But it looks like it's using the same logo from the new video game from Harebrained Schemes. It's all very interesting how it's all kind of tying back together. But allegedly they're making, and they're probably going to announce it at Gen Con if I had to guess. Or not announce it, but start shipping it at Gen Con. But it's going to be slightly streamlined BattleTech with all new kind of stuff. So we'll see how that goes. That's the one thing that I kind of wish I was going to be at Gen Con for, as I would like to play some demos of it. I played a demo of classic BattleTech about 2 years ago at Gen Con because I wanted to see. I'd heard that it was changed from the old BattleTech, and after playing it, I thought it hasn't changed much. I mean, there's like really tiny little maybe modifications of what changed, and so it was like, yeah, that's still a lot of bookwork and stuff like that. And I wanted to get into and try Alpha Strike or First Strike or whatever it's called, but you could never find the starters anywhere. Like, it's sold out, and then they just didn't make any more, and I don't know. Now we've got this new thing, so anyway, that's where we're at. Let me see here. What else we got? Bolt Action. Greetings from sunny Israel. Oh, that's fun. Torch says that Army Painter Dip is liquid talent. Kind of along the same lines to some degree. Generally, I find with Army Painter Dip these days that I do not dip. I mean, I haven't used the Army Painter, like the stuff in the can, for quite a while. I have used it in the past. Previous to that, I did use like Minwax from the hardware store. So you paint your flat colors onto your model, and then you take the model and you dip it upside down into like Minwax, like, you know, walnut color varnish. And then it kind of acts like wash does, and it gets into the crevices. But it's also then completely coated in like polyurethane or something, and it's kind of thick and real shiny, so you got to really like mat it down with some sort of spray. There's a whole bunch of stuff. The other thing is that, at least for me, very frequently, I would drop the model into the can by accident and have to try to fish it out, which was also very difficult. So when I did finally start using the Army Painter stuff, I was actually brushing it on with a crappy brush. And you have a bit more control over it, too. When you dip it and you turn it back upside down and let it to dry, the polyurethane and stuff kind of starts to pool around the base and around their legs, and then their boots get real weird, and so you have to. It's hard. Anyway, I'm being told Alpha Strike, not First Strike. That's probably makes sense. Yeah. JP Got Rockets is totally into robots. Battletech, played it last night, then tried out Alpha Strike. I also play a 28mm mecha game called Tech Commander, no bookkeeping involved. Yeah, I think, some people complain about streamlined games, but man, there's just something to be said about, like, if you want to play a super crunchy game and have to have a spreadsheet, and I mean, like, look at, in the realm of video games, EVE Online is a very crunchy game. There is bookkeeping that goes on involved. I know people who play it who constantly have a laptop with a spreadsheet next to them while they play. Most of the people out there are not interested in that, but there's a big enough group of people who are that's kept that game as a MMORPG going for more than a decade. So, obviously there's a niche, but it's just, it's not for everybody. So, what else here we got? Chronic Toast says the Battletech PC game really is a lot of fun. Has our group stoked for the Battletech reboot tabletop. Yeah, I played the beta. They sent me a beta key for the Battletech PC game, and I really like, because it's turn-based. It's not exactly top-down, but it is kind of like you're looking down at the tabletop, except it's not played on a tabletop. There's like rivers and streams and birds and all kinds of crap going on. And so it's like the nicest tabletop you've ever played on. You know what I mean? Except that when you actually say, I'm going to fire missiles at this guy, you see the missiles fly out and stuff and all that. It's pretty cool. And you can move your perspective around and all that kind of jazz and get down real close or back up and everything. So it's a really cool game. Yeah, I need to actually just pick up the main game now that it's released. Like I said, I've only really played the beta, which was a lot of fun, but I need to pick up the main game. I don't really play a lot of video games, but I'm interested in picking that up. Sniper Wolf says, if I had to quantify how many Battletech minis I have, I would have about 50,000 points in Warhammer. That's a lot. That's a lot. Mitch McCann says, Tabletop Minions helped me get started probably 7 or 8 months ago, and now I'm rounding out bases on a nearly finished Death Army. Thank you so much for beginner-friendly videos. Can't wait for the new Night Haunt. Oh, well, hey, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm glad to hear you got into the hobby. And also, I can't wait for the new Night Haunts either. Yeah, just all the images they released for that, I'm just like, and they haven't announced it yet, but I really hope that the rumor that's been going around, that the new starter box is going to be a bunch of Night Haunt and a bunch of, I think, Stormcast Vanguard mostly. I would definitely be interested in buying that box. I would buy that box all day. So, yeah, I really hope that that's going to be the actual case, but we'll see. Daniel Mengelkamp says, Battletech was the first war game I played. Same here, technically. I played some Battletech. I was first introduced to Battletech when I was in middle school. I played Dungeons & Dragons like in 5th grade. That was the first time I was ever introduced to that. But it was probably 7th grade or so when I played Battletech. And that was back when you still used just like cardboard little standees for the mechs. We didn't have even models. They were just like, it's like a little plastic base, and you stuck a piece of cardboard in it that had like a picture of a mech on it, and that's what we used on the hex sheets and stuff like that. And then it wasn't until I was in college that I started actually playing Battletech with miniatures. Leslie Schaefer asks, has anyone played Gaslands who played Dark Future back in the day? If so, how do they compare? Dark Future was Games Workshop's kind of car post-apocalyptic battle game. I know that the cars for Dark Future are a touch bigger or real close to... There's a video... oh gosh. There's a channel called the Esoteric Order of Gamers. He's out of like New Zealand, I want to say, and seems like a real nice guy. I've watched a bunch of his videos. He just recently did one about Gaslands, and in that he brought out his old copy of Dark Future and kind of compared at least the cars that came in Dark Future to the cars that he was using, which were basically Matchbox style cars. But yeah, I don't know that he compared the rules or anything along those lines, but the cars at least are a little bit more, close to the same size, but I don't think they're exactly the same size. Yeah. VJ Morph says, I only funded one tabletop game on Kickstarter this week. I feel I may finally have my addiction under control. Yeah, I didn't do any Kickstarter this week, and I'm fine with it. Actually, to be fair, I haven't done Kickstarter much in a long time. I want to say the last Kickstarter I did was probably, until this most recent one, was probably the Wreck Age vehicles. And then the most recent one that I've done, which I think is just about to finish, or did finish, I think it did finish, is the Hellboy game from Mantic. Because I'm a big Hellboy fan, and the Mantic guys are cool. And I saw the models at Adepticon. They showed off the regular Hellboy, like, painted model. They had that in their case. I put that on Instagram, took a bunch of pictures of it. But they also showed off a bunch, kind of like to the press only sort of a deal. They showed a bunch of the other models, which were unpainted, but they hadn't released them yet. And so I saw those, and I was just like, yeah, this looks like it's going to be some sort of fun little game. So, and it did nearly $2 million, I think. I'm not sure, actually. That's a good question. But it got close, I'm pretty sure. And it was, yeah, I'm going to get a boatload of models when it finally does show, which is always sort of the problem with Kickstarter modeling games, is that you end up, if it does really well, you end up with so many models, and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to ever do with all of these. So, yeah. So good luck to VJ Morph on staying away from Kickstarter for a whole week. We'll see how that goes. Julian says, hey, Uncle Adam, I'm painting/airbrushing my fell blade. Should I get a separate airbrush for metallics and stuff? I don't know that I would get a separate airbrush for metallics. I don't. I do have two airbrushes. I have a separate airbrush for, like, varnishes and other junk like that. So I don't run varnishes like matte varnish and whatever. I don't run that through my regular airbrush. But metallics, non-metallics, primers, I run those through my normal airbrush. So my normal airbrush is an Iwata Eclipse. It's a HPCS. And that's my standard everyday driver. Like I said, I use it for metallics, non-metallics, primers, whatever. But if I'm going to be using varnishes, or I'm going to be using stuff like that, other kind of, because there's a lot, whether it's gloss varnish or matte varnish, there's a lot of times when you want to spray everything with a gloss varnish, like as you're halfway through the process, because you don't want what you're going to do next to screw up the layers underneath it. So you spray a gloss varnish over it, and then you can do washes and things and whatever, and they won't screw up the paint levels underneath it. For those, I use an Iwata Neo, which is like I think I've got it for, well, it retailed for like $70 or $80, but I got it at Hobby Lobby and used their dumb 40% coupon, and so I got it 40% off. Yeah, so for metallics, I wouldn't think it's a big deal. Like, they always tell you that you should have a separate water pot for painting metallics versus painting non-metallics when you're using a brush, and I can understand that. I almost never do it, but I can understand why you should. For airbrushing, if you're cleaning your airbrush out well enough, you should not notice the difference. You shouldn't find metallic flecks in your non-metallic paints or anything like that if you've cleaned out your airbrush properly, I think. Gaddis Gaming says, is Kickstarter hurting your local game stores? I don't know, honestly. I mean, I know that every store owner I know doesn't like Kickstarter. And I do suspect that people are probably, if they're buying something on Kickstarter, well, then they're not buying it from the store, and I get that. That being said, like, my local store basically doesn't sell anything from Mantic. So the fact that people who are buying things from Mantic are buying it on Kickstarter and not getting it from their local store, my local store doesn't stock any Mantic stuff, and they don't push it. They don't tell people about it too much. You could say, well, you could just order the Mantic stuff. I'm sure they could get it. That's true, but my local stores never tell people, you could get that from Mantic, because they're always selling basically Games Workshop and the other, like, well-known stuff. So I don't know. Like, Zombicide, I know my local stores carry Zombicide, and I know that the only people that are picking it up are people who obviously haven't gotten it already on Kickstarter. So you do find people who are like, oh, this looks cool, and then they can sell it. But that's, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think in the long term, if Kickstarter had never happened, I think you'd see a lot less products out there, so those stores wouldn't have those products to sell anyway. yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think that stores maybe complain about it a little bit more sometimes than it actually maybe affects them. Like I said, you can talk about like Mantic doing all the Kickstarters that they do, but I also know, like I said, at least in my area, my local stores don't carry Mantic stuff generally. So, you know, it's not like they're like carrying a whole bunch of Mantic stuff and people are coming in and going, well, I would have bought that from you, but I already got it on the Kickstarter, because they're not carrying it. Now, maybe you're saying, well, maybe they're not carrying it because it's on Kickstarter. It's kind of a chicken and the egg sort of situation. Oops. So I get that too, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I think that net positive on Kickstarter, because it allows people to be able to create products that they couldn't have created otherwise. I also think that sometimes some manufacturers use it basically like a pre-sale and don't use it the way it's intended. I'm neither a manufacturer nor a retailer, so I don't know that my opinion really matters, but I can just tell you the stuff that I've heard. So that's kind of where that's at. Adam, did Weta Workshop Kickstarter game ever ship finally? Oh, yeah. No, I actually, a couple months ago, I got my giant honkin' box of giant killer robots. It's at work. We keep meaning to sit down and play it like some day, like during lunch or whatever, and we just have not. We just have not gotten. We've been talking about doing it again recently. We even kicked around the idea of like having Game 4 run giant killer robots at TMX, at the Tabletop Minions Expo, which I'm going to put up on the screen again, right there. But instead, now we're going to run Wings of Glory, because we can run it with more people. Like, you know, Giant Killer Robots is basically a 4-player game, but we can get more players in Wings of Glory. It's a World War I airplane game. I've got like a 4x6 desert type map that we can all fly over. There was probably air battles over desert in World War I, I'm assuming. I should probably look to see if there were. But anyway, so we're going to do that, and we've got a bunch of planes between the three of us, so that shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, we still want to play Giant Killer Robots at the office one of these days. Where is my picture? There. So, yeah. What else have we here? Yes, GKR did turn up. It's super cool. I just have not had the chance to go through and like play it, and I want to, though. B. Foster says, Adam, have you seen the new Age of Sigmar podcast by GW? Thoughts on it? I've heard of it. I haven't seen it. Is it a video podcast or is it an audio podcast? I should check. I know it's called the Stormcast, which is funny. I enjoy that name. That's well done. But I have not watched it or heard it, depending on which format it's in. I just knew that they were making one. But I'm glad. It's about time that they do that, in my opinion. Hi, Uncle Adam. What kind of airbrush primer do you use, and do you dilute it? I generally use for airbrush primer, I use one of two. I use either Vallejo, what they call it Vallejo Surface Primer, but it's designed for airbrush. And that I don't dilute except if it's white. If it's white, then I will dilute it a little bit, because otherwise it will dry on the tip of my airbrush almost every time. And then I have to like clean the gunk off the tip of the airbrush. So that's fun. But the normal color, like the black or any of the other darker colors, it doesn't do that. The other color, or the other type of brand that I use for airbrush primer is made by Badger Airbrushes, and it's called Stynylrez, which has got like a couple of Y's in it. It's like S-T-Y. I think it almost spells Wild Stallions from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but not quite. But Stynylrez is the name of the other stuff. And Stynylrez is also a good airbrush primer. Stynylrez has a silver airbrush primer now, which is really cool, like if you're doing Necrons, or if you're trying to do like the undercarriage of your Imperial Knight, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of nice. Yeah, I'm hoping to get there. What do we see here? We've got a vote for Badger equals best airbrush primer from Torch. That's the Stynylrez stuff. Greg Hind says, anyone here back the Fireball Mountain Kickstarter? I didn't, but Matt at Game 4, one of the guys I work with, he did. Because he played it when he was a kid. I never played it when I was a kid, so I never, yeah. VJ Morph says, the Age of Sigmar podcast was a bit of a snooze. Not much different to the Twitch stream, to be honest. I mean, I suppose it's early. You know, they just started. And I can't imagine that they're going to be very controversial. I mean, not that you need to be controversial, but corporate podcasts have a kind of an agenda generally, and they sort of are trying to basically sell product. So yeah, being funny and off the cuff is maybe not necessarily top of their dance card. Not sure that that's a good analogy or not, but yeah. So there's that. I don't know. I'll have to listen to it or check it out and see how it works out. Someone asks if you thin Stynylrez. I've only ever used it straight from the bottle, so I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but it seems to work so far for me. The Gentleman Nerd says, "Hey, Uncle Adam, have you ever thought about making your own tabletop game? Hello from Canada." Funny story. So before I did all of this, I did have a small little hobby press game company, actually. Me and my friend Peter, we made games for, we started in the mid-90s. We both had normal day jobs, and we just did this on the side, which is why I called it a hobby press. You can still have a day job and have like a real game company to some degree, but we made like we weren't making miniature games either. We were just making little we made a game called Zombie Rally, which you can look up on Board Game Geek. We made another game called BattleBots, which that name was then, and I don't want to say stolen, it was also used by a group that made a TV show that used to be on Comedy Central about remote control cars banging into each other, basically. And they eventually sent us a cease and desist, and then we came back and proved to them that we had been using it for more than 5 years, and then the ball was in their court, and then it was basically they just bought all our old stock, which was fine, and then we just kept the we kept the copyright on the text, so we got to re-release the game, then called it Metal Crushers, and so that was fine. But anyway, yeah, we had this little game company called Snarling Badger Games. The website was still up until about 3-4 months ago when there was a server glitch at our ISP and they deleted everything. So that's fun. Anyway, you can still find it like on RPG Now. You can find like Zombie Rally. You can find Metal Crushers. Probably on Warehouse 13 or whatever from Steve Jackson Games, and I think on wargamedownloads.com. I think you can still find our games out there. So, yeah, they're just PDFs now. But, I don't know, Zombie Rally sold pretty well for a while. That was when we had it as a printed thing. So, yeah, I've done some of that. As I was starting to get more into miniatures, we started running a miniatures game, and then I kind of didn't like it, and we were back and forth, and I'm just not super into game design anymore, though I do have an idea that I've been kicking around for a little while. But I got a lot of ideas that I've been kicking around for a lot of different things, and there's only so much time in the day, so at some point, potentially, I may release some sort of little cheap or free minis game, maybe donation-driven PDF sort of thing, use your own minis. I don't know. I've got this idea, but I haven't gone real far with it, so because I got other stuff to do, like paint terrain. So, all right, so let's see here. Terrain. For whatever reason, lately I've been in terrain mode, so I haven't been painting models, even though I've got a bunch of models to paint. I've been basically just working on terrain. So, first thing I did yesterday, actually, because I did a bunch of terrain. You'll see a bunch of the terrain that I did in the Wreckage Battle Reports. I did 3 different shantytown type buildings from Miniature Building Authority is the name of the company. I showed off some of the resin buildings here, like, hey, look, this is stuff I bought at Adepticon. Well, 3 of them are done now, and they turned out pretty well, and I liked them. So that's fun. But then I also have a lot more resin that I bought at Adepticon. If you go back and look at the Adepticon Booty episode, I bought a lot of stuff from a company called ArmorCast, and they make resin terrain. So I did 2 things yesterday when I was all of a sudden struck by, motivation to get some things done because it was nice out, not humid, but still nice and warm, and that was fine. So one thing I did was I washed a bunch of ArmorCast terrain. So this, which kind of looks just like a blob here. Let's see if I can get it a little bit closer. So this is like a pile of like bricks and rubble and stuff like that, made by ArmorCast. It's got pretty good, nice quality to it. You can see it. I don't know why the hand always makes it focus better. I don't know what that is. Anyway, I see people do that all the time now in videos, and if you put the hand like this, nothing. Nope, just get the top of my head and my face. But you do that, and all of a sudden it focuses way better. So yeah, so this is just a single piece of resin. But the thing is, you have to wash resin before you try to put paint on it, because they put this stuff inside the mold. It's like a powdery stuff or something that is called mold release, so that when the resin dries, they can actually get it out of the mold. It's kind of like when you're making muffins and you spray the muffin tin with Pam, and then you can get the muffins out, as opposed to having to try to eat the muffins out of the pan because they won't release. It's the same type of thing. Here's another smaller piece from that same package. Again, little rubble and all that kind of junk. So this stuff, I don't know if I'm going to paint it brick color or if I'm going to paint it like gray color. I'm not 100% sure yet, but both of those are going to match, at least. That's the plan. So those two pieces were cool. And then I did 4 of these. So this is just like a chest-high style wall, and it is post-apocalyptic in some degree, because you can see there's like cement, but there's also like, it's like fortified with like, you know, crappy like corrugated tin and diamond plate and all kinds of just scraps. So like the cement parts of it, which is more the top, and the internal parts are definitely going to be gray because it's cement. But then, like I did with the, and you haven't seen it yet, but you'll see it soon, with the shantytown buildings, all these pieces of metal are going to be a lot of different colors, so it's going to make it look more patchwork, more put together, more salvaged. So there's 4 of these that I washed yesterday. And then the last 2 pieces, there's basically like rubble piles, but not like the big brick rubble. Like this is big chunks of brick and masonry. This is just more whatever. But then also some you know, leaky, probably leaky like cans, you know, like what do you call them? Barrels, 55-gallon drums, whatever you want to call them, barrels, drums, that kind of stuff. This is not focusing as well as I would like. What if I do this? What if I, oops, yeah, and then that focuses. Anyway, really cool quality. It's going to be like a big gritty kind of pile of just who knows what trash. But there's one of these, and then, even larger, is this piece. So this is just a giant crater, basically, but it's filled with what's probably going to be, I'm thinking, toxic waste. If I really want to get fancy, I could easily, like, there's enough parts in here that are not gritty, that are like smooth, that I could paint it like glowing green if I wanted to, or something like that. Put a bunch of gloss varnish in those areas to make it look like there's just all that stuff's leaking in one spot and gonna, you know, turn you into a mutant if you go in there. But this is a good size piece. I mean, like, here it is next to my face. I don't know if that's not a good scale, but it's probably, I don't know, 6-7 inches in diameter. So this is also a nice big heavy piece. So I got all, and I've got a bunch more, but this is just the stuff that I washed yesterday when I was working on getting these things ready, because I'm going to prime these not right after the show, but after we get back from lunch with my in-laws. I'm going to prime these, and then I have to go to a picnic. But that's the plan for today, and then I want to get these guys painted up kind of hopefully over the next couple of weeks when I'm not at conventions. But yesterday I got things primed that had been sitting in my basement for a long time. Excuse me. Let me go to this, and let me go to that. All right, so probably 3-4 months ago, I had my local store order me these 2 pieces of terrain. These are called the thermic plasma regulators. And they're basically designed to go with the new terrain stuff that they released for like Shadow War Armageddon. You know, that new stuff that you can also use for Necromunda or whatever. And these are designed to line up with those pieces. You'll notice that here you've got, can we zoom in? Oh, we can zoom in, sort of. So yeah, you've got this walkway. Hang on, something's wrong with my voice. There we go. So you got this walkway stuff that looks just like the other pieces that they've done in that same line, but then you've got these crazy plasma things, which they really did nice on the glow. You can really see the glow on the paint here. So I'm hoping I can make them look as nice as that. The hell they call the Baleful Realm Gates. You've seen those possibly if you follow me on like Instagram. I did some, I did some of those, and I did a lot of like airbrush and trying to do OSL, you know, object source lighting to make the glow from the realm gate like it was, you know, actually lighting up. But these look really like they lit up, so I'm going to try to do that as well. Anyway, so I had already had them built, and so I primed them yesterday, and I primed them kind of a real warmish, not quite red, but almost a reddish brown, because it was just this automotive primer that I found that was called red primer, but it's not as red or maroon. It's a little bit more reddish brown, but I think it's going to work out nicely. So I've got those guys got primed yesterday as I was in my priming fit, and then I primed 2 of the old Imperial Bastions, which I put together and built I don't know how long ago. 5 years maybe? They've been sitting in my basement, and I've used them in games a bunch of times, but they've all just been gray plastic. And I'm always like, I really got to get these things. So they're primed now. They're ready to get moving. I should have probably primed them green. They look kind of cool green now that I come to think of it. Like, I primed them gray, which is, you know, but I don't know. Anyway, I'll work on it. But yeah, so these guys are ready to go. They don't have the gun emplacements on the sides here. You got the big heavy bolters, you know, here. They're just going to be empty. They're going to be ruined, basically. Like, you're not going to be able to, they're not going to be like torn apart, but they're just going to be like abandoned or whatever. They'll just basically be line of sight blockers. Maybe if I'm actually playing with them in 40K, you'll be able to actually go into them, like in Fortify. I don't even know if 8th edition has the ability to fortify buildings anymore. I haven't even, you just never do it. You just always play with ruins. I'll have to look in the rules. But anyway, I just wanted to get them done. So I thought step 1 is you got to get them primed. I mean, step 1 is really you got to get them built, but they've been built for a really long time. Even though I tried to get all the spider webs off of them because they've been sitting in the basement, when I primed them, there are still spider webs on them. So that's just, it adds to the patina, I guess you could say. And then the last thing that I primed, this mess, this is the Ophidian Archway, which is a super cool looking model. Don't get me wrong, but what they don't show you here, let me spin this baby 360. Oh dear, how do we make it stop? Oh, drag it to spin. So there's these little dragons over here, and these dragons are warped like nobody's business. And so right here, you see how you can't see through there on this one? You can on mine because they're really badly warped. And so that's no fun. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to hang a bunch of ivy and stuff like that down there to cover up the fact. I was going to putty in between there, but then yesterday I was like, I should prime now. Oh, I should really putty up those holes. And I was like, nah, or not. So yeah, that's where that's at. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to painting this. I'm going to probably do the same type of metallic look to this, you know, where you've got the stone, but the, like, I don't know what that gold foil or whatever that's supposed to be. I'm not actually going to use gold foil, obviously. But these pieces, like this, could be used in any kind of post-apocalyptic game, but it's most likely going to be used in my 40K stuff and my, you know, Shadow Warmageddon type stuff. Same with this, although this is a little bit more 40K-ish. And then the Ophidian Archway obviously is going to be for Age of Sigmar and potentially any other kinds of fantasy stuff like Relic Blade and things like that. So anyway, that's that. Now I got to get all my screens back to where I was, and this has to go there, and this has to go there. So yeah, those are the things that I'm currently working on. You'll remember back last year I talked about making a terrain project, a post-apocalyptic, like a bunch of what do you call them? Like shipping containers in a stack. And then the people like got these things stacked up, and on the top they put like a video billboard that they had salvaged from somewhere, and there was going to be videos running on it. And I did an actual episode of the Every Other Sunday show about it, and showed off some sketches I was working on and all that stuff. Well, the video screen thing never worked. The one that I had purchased and used to work then just stopped working. And my friend who was really good at electronics couldn't figure it out either. Like he knows how to solder and stuff. But anyway, yeah, it just didn't work. So, yeah, that was bad. So now he and I have worked together, and we're making a new screen, and we are working on that, and it is based off of... it's the cat. Excuse me. I think Diesel wants to go outside or something, and when he does that, he bangs on the recycling and then makes a bunch of noise. Anyway, he's like a 3-year-old. Anyway, so what was I talking about? The screen. Got a Raspberry Pi Zero W, which is a little tiny thing the size of a stick of gum, but it's a computer. Has like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built into it and all that. So we've got that wired up a couple weeks ago, last week, 2 weeks ago, and it works. So now I just need to build the enclosure for everything, and then it will become a piece of terrain. But I'll probably do an episode about that because it's going to be a big project, which is already too expensive, but you know, it's going to be kind of cool. So that'll be fun. Let me see. Oh, last thing, which I think the patrons have seen. Yes, they have, but you guys haven't. So there's this website called Hero Forge. Hero Forge is, you can create a little character, and they've, you know, it's like a, right into the browser. You can say I want it to be a man or a woman or a, you know, an elf or an orc or a robot or whatever, and then you can put different stuff on them. There's different sets of clothing and weapons and helmets and all kinds of junk like that, and then you can get a 3D print from Shapeways through them, and then you have your own custom little 28mm model. You can also buy just the STL file, the 3D file that you would use on a 3D printer, which is what I did, and it's like $10. So I did that, and then I took the STL file and I blew it up 4 times, and I printed this very large miniature, which is an oxymoron. The reason I designed this and did this is because I want him to be a post-apocalyptic, like, statue. He's kind of, it's hard to see here because of the light, but he's like a post-apocalyptic guy. He's got goggles, and he's got like a cool backpack, and he's got this gun, which didn't 3D print as well as I would have liked. This is, I did this on my own 3D printer. It didn't work super hot in the bottom of the gun part, but my plan is to make this a rundown, busted statue in the middle of a post-apocalyptic town. That is like a, it's a, what do you call it? Like a tribute to a guy who was early on in the apocalypse trying to help everybody out and whatever. And now, like, this arm will have fallen off on the ground, and you'll see the internal structure, and he's going to be all rusted and crappy. But this is going to be on like a plinth and all that kind of stuff. I've got this in progress as well. The problem is that I wanted to prime this yesterday, but the plinth isn't done, and I kind of want to prime it all at once. So that's where this is at. But this will also be coming soon. You'll see more of this. But it turned out pretty well. He's like when he's all statued up and stuff and painted and patinaed and stuff, I think he's going to look really cool. So anyway, those are my terrain things. Yeah, that's where we're at. What else have we got here? A bunch of people talking about Diesel. He is making a lot of noise. He's a, what is he? He's half Maine Coon. So they're noisy, and that's his thing. They make a lot of noise. He also is large. He's about 18 pounds. John says, I got into 40K when Shadow Warmageddon was released. Pre-ordered the box set and started collecting Necrons. Still haven't put the contents of the box set together. Well, you know, the box set like being the terrain, because the terrain's pretty cool. Like, that was, I'm glad I like Shadow Warmageddon. I'm really glad they released the terrain with it as well, because the terrain, I think, is really neat. So, Diesel. Just gonna go close that door, and then he's gonna, no, then he'll be stuck in there. Diesel! I'm gonna go fix that problem. All right. So in future shows, I need to put the recycling up on the stove, because then he can't hit it. That's how that works. Ugh, goodness gracious. Anyway, so what else have we got going on here? Lord and Losser says, I love Hero Forge. I got 2 minis off of it for D&D characters that look great. I just wish I painted them a bit better, since they're the first ones I did. Yeah, their models are great. Like, when I first started seeing some of the stuff from Hero Forge, they were... I mean, they had a decent amount of stuff that you could choose from right away, and they've been adding and adding and adding, so there's tons of different options. But the first printed model I ever saw from them, I was like, because it had that kind of ridginess that sometimes the 3D prints can have. But the most recent one, I printed a model for because we're playing D&D at work on Tuesdays during lunch, and so I've got a Dwarven Cleric, and I'm super impressed with how smooth they've gotten them now. So yeah, that's really cool. What else have we got? Joe says, any idea if they're going to come out with a start collecting for Harlequins? Thinking they might be fun to paint. I haven't seen if they're going to. Do they have enough models in the line to do an entire start collecting box? I honestly don't know. I don't know jack about space clowns, really. So I don't know if there's enough for them to make the entire start collecting box like full or whatever or not. I know that there's like some flying ones, and I know that there's some dudes running around and some mimes, and I don't know much else about them. So yeah, I don't think so. Let me see here. Devin Jones is, let's see, there's a bunch of talk about 3D printers. The Prusa i3 Mark III is fantastic. I'm glad to hear that, Devin, because I'm getting one. It is coming sometime in the next couple of weeks. So that'll be fun. I already have a 3D printer, but I wanted to get something better. And so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my older 3D printer. I might sell it. I might just use it as a backup. I might only print specific things with it and print, things that need to be a little bit nicer with the Prusa. But yeah, the Prusa is coming, like I said, should be shipping end of May, beginning of June. So I'm looking forward to getting that. Probably I will be at a convention when it shows up, but that'll be fine. So yeah. The noob painter says, I'm going to go fix that problem. Ominous. I wasn't going to hit him or nothing. No, I just took the thing that he was banging on and put it on top of the stove, and then he can't bang on it anymore. So there's that. JP Got Rocket says, can I hire Diesel? My punk band needs a new drummer. He is a bit of a drummer. He, oh man, years ago, when we first moved into this house, he found that there's a closet in the bathroom that has a washer and dryer in it, like it's stacked on top of each other, and the door to it, he would go in there sometimes in the middle of the night and just bang on that door because it was open, and so it was up against the wall, and it sounded like someone was banging on our house, like trying to like at the back door, like trying to get in, or would hey, knocking on the back door, and we didn't know what it was. We were looking around, and because he would stop doing it when we got up and started in the middle of the night, started walking around. And eventually we figured out, because he did it once when we were in the den, we hear this bang, 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 and we look in there and he's just banging on this door. We're like, you little bastard. So we have put a rubbery thing on the back of the door now, so he can't do that. But the recycling thing, that's a new thing. That's his new drum. So there's fun with that. Patrick says, does anyone know of any more 15mm war games? I know HOTT is a thing. I just want some choices. Is that Horde of the Things? I think that might be Horde of the Things. I know there's a lot of 15mm sci-fi war games. There was a big, I hate to say renaissance, but there was a lot of 15mm sci-fi war games that came out 5 or more years ago. And a lot of models and a lot of that kind of stuff. I never got into 15mm much. I played Flames of War, which is technically more like 20, but yeah, I don't know a ton about 15mm. But I know, like I said, I do know that there was a pseudo-renaissance of 15mm sci-fi about, like I said, maybe 5, maybe 8 years ago. So, if you go to the miniatures page, TMP, the miniatures page, just look it up on Google. I know there's a lot of people there that play 15mm stuff, specifically sci-fi. Honer Tim says, glad to see they're improving. I haven't been buying any of the 3D stuff because of the print lines. Yeah, I mean, the stuff that you're getting from Shapeways, the stuff that you're getting from Forge World or Hero Forge, which is coming from Shapeways, if you pay more, for the real high quality stuff, that high quality stuff is getting very high quality. So there's that. I had a bunch of people telling me recently that I should try to get. There's a couple different companies out there making resin 3D printers, and I like the concept especially because there's cheap ones now, but I just still. From what I understand, having a resin printer, the smell can be kind of rough too, and so I don't just want that in the house, just stinking up the place. So yeah, that's why I didn't go that way. DJ Todd P. Harris says, unless he jumps up on the stove. Yeah, Diesel doesn't jump up on the stove, so we should be fine there. The new painter says if they were going to make a Harlequin starter box, they would have done so when the Codex released. Well, you'd think, I suppose. I mean, I don't know what production schedules and things like that are like. They might not have been able to, but yeah. Frankie Lee Bailey says, hello all, and then VJ Moore from JP Got Rockets and a whole bunch of other people. How's everyone doing today? Guess I'll be watching the first hour a bit late today. That's fine. That's not a problem. It'll be there. Good, glad to see you here. Jerry says, I got a used set of Space Hulk Tyranids. So like the Gene Stealers and stuff from Space Hulk. Are they no longer vogue? I'm still having a blast getting them painted and imagining some terrain for them. The only issue kind of with Space Hulk figures is that they don't have round bases. So their bases are, because at least I don't think they do. Well, I mean, old ones do, but the new current edition of Space Hulk, both the Terminators and the Gene Stealers have like kind of integrated sort of weird bases. They're not round. But that's not that big of a deal. If you want to put them on round bases, you can. It's not that big of a deal. Otherwise, they're great models. Don't get me wrong. So yeah, if you're just doing it just for fun to paint them as well, then they're spectacular. But if you're gonna like start a Tyranids army, you would probably need to put them on the right kind of like round base, right size. I don't know what the size would be for those guys specifically, but you could find that out online pretty easily, and then you can go to town that way. I know people that use the Terminator models from Space Hulk for their force, but they rebased them, you know, put them on round bases and stuff, and they've turned out really great. They're great models, really, really good. I picked up there's a new game, it's like a new version, really. It's Space Hulk Deathwing Enhanced Edition, and I picked it up on PlayStation 4, and I've been really kind of enjoying it. I haven't played it a bunch. I just got it like yesterday. I played it a little bit in the afternoon after I got done priming, and I was waiting for the prime to like dry. Here's a tip about priming. If you prime stuff like this or whatever, and you use rattle can and you do it outside, because you should, because it stinks bad and it's not good for your family to have that in the house. After you get done priming, if you can, don't bring it indoors right away. Like leave it, preferably if you've got like a garage. If you've got access to a garage or some other kind of sheltered place, let it sit outside if you can for like a 24-hour period. Because when you spray the spray stuff onto... I lost focus there for some reason. When you spray all this stuff on here and you get it all on there, the propellant that comes out of the can, that's what really makes the majority of the odor. And when you spray it, I think the propellant gets trapped in the paint, and so it will still smell like propellant pretty badly, and you have to let it, what they call outgas. So basically, letting it sit outside like for 24 hours, the stuff will not smell as bad when you do bring it in. But if you spray it, prime it, and then bring it right in the house, it will smell up your house real quick because it's off-gassing all that propellant and all that smell that you were using to spray outside in the first place. So there's a quick little tip from your Uncle Adam. Once you've primed some stuff, let it sit outside so that it can outgas, at least for probably 12 hours, but I would go 24 generally. So there we go. Devin Jones says the resin can also be toxic, resin printers. I have an Anycubic photon, and you have to create a whole process to make sure the resin doesn't get all over the place. That's the other thing that caused me not to buy a resin 3D printer, is that I also hear that no matter how good you are, how careful you are, their sticky resin gets all over the place, which I understand. And I'm not generally all that careful with those types of things, so the entire basement would be sticky, and I don't want to go that. Hey, Uncle Adam, quick question. When do you think, realistically, the new starter set, Age of Sigmar starter set will come out, the one with the Stormcast and the Night Haunts? Well, I don't know that they've absolutely said, yes, that's what the starter set's going to be. I don't even know, have they said there's going to be a starter set? There's a bunch of rumors going around. There's going to be a starter set that's Night Haunts and Stormcast, / technically Vanguard Stormcast. But I don't know if they've actually said, yes, that's coming. I know that they said that they're going to be releasing the new... I think if they're releasing 2.0 in June, I would think that they would release the starter box in June as well. But I don't know. They have said that 2.0 is coming in June, so I would guess it would be coming in June. It would be weird if they released 2.0 and then release the starter box for it, like a month later, or like in August for Gen Con. I think that'd be weird. So I don't know. We will see, though. What else have we got here? Tim ML says, good morning. Looks like I made it for the second half. Hey, Tim. I'll be seeing Tim not next weekend, but the weekend after up at TMX. TMX is this thing right there. I'm just going to keep bringing that graphic up. I have other graphics as well. I got a t-shirt graphic. You can talk about that. bit.ly/merchbunker. You get yourself a Get Slain or Pachow t-shirt or Live Laugh Blood for the Blood God. That's actually one that's selling the best. The Live Laugh Blood for the Blood God one is the one that is currently selling best. So, but Pachow is gaining on it to some degree. Yeah. Anyway, back here. So, what else? Someone says Voxes smell too when they gas off. I don't know what a Vox is. What else have we got here? Devin Jones says, I don't find the resin smell to be too bad, but the resin seems to get everywhere, even when using damn near clean room protocols. Yeah, that is my concern too. Because there's a couple of good resin printers right now that you can get for $500 to $600 that do very nice work, but the resin is still really currently kind of hard to work with. You get really good work, but it's tough. So there's that. J.E. Granberg says, have you tried the new frosted glass spray from Krylon to varnish minis yet? I have not yet. It's still sitting right here. And so I haven't. I need to, like I said, I need to paint up some models, like just solid color, and use it as a test, because I don't want to like paint up a nice model and use that stuff on it and find out that it doesn't work properly. So I'm still kind of in that process. But it is definitely in the plans, because if it does work well, I'm going to probably use it on all this terrain once it's all painted, because I like my terrain to be varnished well, because it usually, like I said earlier in the show, it takes a little bit more beating than the models do. Like models, you're a little more careful with the models, but terrain gets kind of chucked around a bunch. So I always like to make sure my terrain is well varnished. And so if I can make sure that this is a really nice flat varnish that I can put on, then I'm all for it. Let me see here. Phil Johnson says, I was at Wargamer Fest, a starter box and a separate book option confirmed at event. Okay, so there would be, but not what was in it. So yeah, they've said that there's going to be a new starter box, which I mean, I kind of assume. It's been a while since they made a big starter box, so that makes sense. But man, if it is Night Haunts and Vanguard Stormcast, then I will probably buy one, because I've got a Stormcast army that's not built, but it's purchased, and I would like more of those guys. And those Night Haunts are spectacular, and they will work well with my current Death army that I'm working on. So, boom, no-brainer for me. Paul Noxie says, I've got Space Hulk on PS4 too, liking it, but it feels niche to Space Hulk fans. It gets that intense later on when I get 10,000 kills trophy after 4 days. Yeah, there are times when, like, you know, it's funny, because it's like, there's times you're walking around and you're just like, nothing is happening. I'm just walking from point A to point B. And then there's other times when you're sitting in a room and you're just gunning down just gene stealer after gene stealer after gene stealer, and and you're like, wow, it's not like a lot of other first-person games where it's kind of spread out a bunch, where you've got like guys to shoot here, guys to shoot here, guys to shoot here. It's like periods of walking around and then just constant firefight for a bit, and then periods of walking around, which is sort of cool. I like it. TJ Menzies says, I need a cello shirt. Oh, maybe you just have just a shirt with you guys can't see my cursor. But yeah, just a shirt with this guy, maybe a little bit. I don't know. That's possible. The Chronic Toast says, once resin printers use sealed resin packets like the object printers, then I'll get one. Until then, not worth the hassle. I don't think I know what that is, but a nice sealed, nice sealed like resin. Yeah, that'd be kind of fun actually. If I didn't have to like get it all over the place, that'd be great. Uptown Toast. There's a lot of toast. We got Chronic Toast, Uptown Toast. Hi, Adam. A question for you. I've had my first compressor arrive, and it's faulty. Had an air leak from the top. Oh, that sounds bad. I sent it back, and I don't want to buy it again. It was a best model compressor. Could you recommend an airbrush compressor for me? The two that I know the best are made by Badger. So Badger Airbrush, they make a bunch of good compressors that are relatively well regarded. The one that I own is not Badger. It's actually a company called Sparmax, Sparmax, possibly two X's. Might be Sparmax with two X's, but I don't remember. I think it's just one. Anyway, that is the brand that I think that they seem to sell at like Hobby Lobby and things like that. So the one that I've got is called the TC2000, and it was like $350, but again, 40% off coupon because that's what they do over there at Hobby Lobby, and I'm glad to take their money. So yeah, so I got 40% off of that, which was a pretty reasonable price, I thought. And it's nice. It does not have a tank. As it turns out, generally airbrush compressors, I don't know, like my first airbrush compressor had a tank, but it was not really an airbrush compressor. It was just a compressor I bought at the hardware store. The focus is going in and out on this thing now. Anyway, so what is going on? Let me just turn this a little bit, see if that helps. So yeah, I'm just basically I used that for quite a while. So it was loud, it was very loud, but it would fill up the tank and then it would shut off. And then you'd be spraying and spraying and spraying and spraying and spraying and getting into it, and then it would use up most of the air in the tank, and then the compressor would kick in again. It would scare the hell out of you. But it was like $60 too, and you got it from the hardware store. So those work fine, honestly. The thing I've got now doesn't do anything until you start spraying, and then if you listened closely to the last airbrush video from Sam a couple weeks ago, his compressor does the exact same thing, whereas you're spraying, it's like bzz, bzz, like it kicks in and kicks out, kicks in and kicks out, and you would think that wouldn't work, but it works great. So yeah, Sparmax TC2000 is the one I use, and I like it. But Iwata makes them, and a bunch of other companies, but I don't know that it needs to be a brand name. So those are my suggestions. If you want to go cheap, go to your local hardware store and get like a pancake press compressor or some other kind of like 2-gallon like big red compressor. If noise is an issue, those won't work because they're, like I said, they're real noisy. If you need something quiet, you want to go with something else. But anyway, the Chronic Toast says object industrial printers use milk pouch style resin packets that just plug into the printer. Very nice to work with as they have a resin well to transfer resin from bag to printer. Oh, okay. So it's all connected to yeah, okay. So you don't have to pour the resin in there. You just got a pouch and then it goes in there, and it's like a closed system. Well, that's kind of cool. They should do that for cheap DLP printers, and then I might buy one. Definitely. Honer Tim says, my mistake. VOCs, volatile organic compounds, are what makes the paint dry because they have a low boiling point. Oh, okay. Liam asks, hey Adam, did you see the new Stormcast podcast? I have not. I heard of it, but someone else asked that earlier. I haven't seen it yet. Bronson asks, hey Uncle Adam, if I wanted a 3D printer for printing scenery for wargaming, what would you recommend? Is there something else other than a printer that you would recommend for buildings and such? You don't need a 3D printer for buildings. If you want to design things in a very specific way that you like and all that stuff, and you're kind of a dork like me who thinks that 3D printers are cool, I would definitely look into getting one. Someone mentioned one earlier that I've heard good things about. It's pretty cheap. I forget what the heck it's called. An entry or something like that. Someone else remember what it was that we said something a while back. It's like an inexpensive $200 to $300 printer. You could look into something like that. But the other option is honestly just to build stuff out of like foam core and that pink insulation foam you can get from the hardware store and things like that. And it's there's a lot of different things you can get from the hardware store actually that make great terrain. So definitely. What else have we got? Sparmax. That's the one I was looking at on Amazon. This is Uptown Toast saying, I live in the UK, so it seems my best place to get equipment. I have an Iwata Eclipse I want to use. Yeah, I like the Sparmax one a lot. I don't think it's on face focus, so yeah, it's not being fooled by the cello. What else have we got here? David says I have an Iwata Smart Jet, which works really well. So that's one of the ones that I've seen that Iwata makes. So you know, those are designed specifically for airbrushes, obviously. So that works out well too. Ratmaster says I have a Pache. Is it Pache or Pache? Anyway, with the tank, and I'm happy with it. Yeah, I think actually my very first airbrush when I was like in college was a Pache. My parents bought me one for my birthday. But I wasn't painting minis back then. I was painting I was using it I wanted to learn how to do shirts and actually I wasn't so much I wanted to do shirts like you get at the mall. I wanted to do more renderings. I was very into, I bought a lot of books about marker rendering and things like that because I was really into I was oh, I'm going to get into product illustration when I get, after I'm out of college. And then everything became computerized, and then I was like, oh wait, no, let's not do that. And then I went into photography instead. So yeah. Devin Jones says, when you're done printing, you still have to get the remaining resin off of the model. That means cleaning it in IPA, rubbing alcohol. Now, I don't generally like IPAs. I think they're too hoppy, but I don't think they're rubbing alcohol. That's not, I think, charitable. I think that was a beer joke. I'm not really a big beer drinker, but I do know that I'm not a big fan of IPAs. But yeah, yes, Ender, the Ender 3 Creality. That's a pretty good 3D printer for pretty inexpensive, from what I understand. If you want to get into the printing, what do you call it? Like terrain and stuff like that. I should call them up and tell them to. I was gonna say I should call them up and tell them to send me one, and I could talk about it. But I don't need 3 3D printers, or do I? Because then it'd be like a 9D printer. I don't think that's gonna work. I might go back in time, and I don't want to do that. Nota Beholder says the CR10 is also supposed to be a good machine for terrain. I'm going to be making a video soon-ish about... So I've already made a video about 3D printing, and I kind of focused a little bit on terrain. I've made a couple of... I made one about 3D printing in Wargaming. I made one about using Shapeways if you don't want to buy a 3D printer, but you still want 3D printed stuff. I did one about going online and buying terrain files predominantly for your 3D printer, so you don't have to design stuff yourself. There are people out there who are selling just the files, and they do really good work, and then you can buy them and print them. But I want to do a video coming up soon about making your own 3D shapes. You have an idea in your head, how do you do it quickly and simply without having to learn a completely new program? I mean, you're still going to have to learn a new program, but not something super crazy detailed. So there are things out there that I use that if you so I want to do a video about that. Yeah. Brian O says, anyone use the Iwata Neo? I bought one yesterday. Yeah, that's my second brush. That's the one I use for varnishing and stuff generally. Matthew Sears says, oh, Secret Weapon Miniatures sent me 2 full sets of these tiles by accident. This will be a lot to paint. Yes. You should you could have a giveaway on the Wreckage Twitter or something. Does Wreckage have an Instagram? Wreckage should have an Instagram, just FYI. So yeah, so that was a Kickstarter. Secret Weapon Miniatures. They made these terrain tiles a long time ago, and the Kickstarter was very. They're I think they're 1 foot by 1 foot tiles, aren't they? You know how Games Workshop's got those big, the Realm of Battle boards that are 2 foot by 2 foot plastic, hard plastic tiles that are all molded and stuff. Secret Weapon made 1 foot by 1 foot ones, so you can be a little bit more modular with it, I guess. So that's kind of cool. But they're nice and molded, and they've got all kinds of things going on. Now there's some beer talk in the chat after my IPA joke. Liam asks, Adam, sorry, you probably already talked about this, but when and how did you get into photography? Well, let me see. I got into photography in high school. So I was in the high school newspaper, and I started in photos in the photography department in our paper. And then I sort of moved into the advertising department and started making ads and selling ads and doing all that kind of stuff. And then eventually, when I was a junior and senior, I was the head of the ad department. But I was still interested in photography. And then when I got into college, I was mostly going into graphic design. And the graphic design department at my college at the time, in the early 90s, had not really gotten interested in computers yet. I was still learning how to, like, you know, ink like things with a brush, you know, that were then eventually going to be used in anatomy. Like the original Mac, you know, the original Mac had come out in '84. This was in the early 90s. There was Quark. There was, it wasn't InDesign yet, but there was programs for doing graphic design and all that kind of stuff, Photoshop, all that kind of jazz. And we weren't learning any of it when I was in college. And I was like, this is weird. Why am I still learning all this? Why am I not learning how to use a computer to do this? Because this is the way it's going. So I switched over to fine art photography for my major instead. And then I was working at a camera shop at the same time, so I got, you know, discount on all the equipment and stuff that I needed for class, which was nice. Yeah, I worked at that camera store for like 4 years. So that also, you know, gave me a kind of a leg up or that in an interest area in that. And so I've just always been into photography and stuff. Actually, yesterday I was really hoping to go do some landscape photography. There's this big, huge rock formation about an hour and a half west of here I want to take pictures of. And I wanted to go yesterday. That was part of my plan in the evenings. I want to get it when the sun's going down. But the sky was just completely just straight, flat blue. There was nothing, which a lot of times is a lovely day, you know. But when you're trying to take photos, especially landscape, you do want something going on in the sky. You want generally some sort of clouds and things like that. It makes it visually more interesting. So I'm like I kept an eye on all the weather apps that I use and all that stuff, and it was just like, do I want to drive an hour and a half to get there and just have a completely flat blue sky? I'm like, I don't think I do. So I didn't. But sadly, I'm not going to be able to until probably end of June. Will I be able to go out and shoot again for that kind of stuff. But yeah, and I've never super been big into landscape, but I'm getting a little bit more interested in it. I kind of want to do it my own way because there's a lot of boring landscape photography out there, in my opinion, but I have digressed. Anyway, so yeah, been a photographer guy for a long time, and then that also was what drove me into videography and filmmaking and all that kind of stuff, and the junk that I do here, which is why I always have lots of cameras and junk around. So there's that. I also just like gadgets. So cameras are gadgets, and boom, there you go. Anyway, now we're talking about summer saisons and whiskey / bourbon and Blender. Oh yeah, so Blender's a free 3D program, but it has got a pretty steep learning curve, in my opinion. So that's why I haven't been using it. So I probably won't be talking about Blender in the video that I make upcoming. So anyway, but I am getting ideas, trying to figure it out. All right, what else have we got? Mitch McCann asks, what's a good first terrain piece so I'm not depressed if I fail at a Warsquire Citadel or something? Also looking for ideas for death grave sites. Okay, so if you are looking to like buy a terrain piece, build it, and then paint it, that's a good question. It depends a bit on what you play. Like if you're playing, you mentioned the Warsquire Citadel, so that's an Age of Sigmar thing. There are decent Age of Sigmar pieces of terrain. The Ophidian Archway is not one of them. That guy right there, it looks cool, but it is a warped piece of crap. It's just not great. And, you know, I like Games Workshop stuff, and I like the guys, and they make generally great stuff, but every once in a while, they do not hit it out of the park, and this is one of them. That thing is rough. Like I said, because all the pieces seem to be really warped, and it's not just mine. I've talked to a bunch of people who are all like, yeah, there are really big, weird gaps where those little dragons on the corners get glued to the main piece. I don't know. That's the way that is. So I would look at something else from them. The realm gates that they sell, the Baleful realm gates, I think are really cool, and those weren't warped at all. Mine. I don't think I have any pictures here. Anyway, I mean, I do on my phone, but I'm not going to hold my phone up. I mean, I could, but I'm probably not going to. So yeah, I would look at maybe the Baleful Realm Gates. They're fun pieces to paint. And there's a couple other pieces that are Age of Sigmar related that you could also go with. Yeah, I would not jump into the Warsquire Citadel. That's a big monkey. You want to probably wait a bit on that, and if you can, or buy it now because maybe it won't be around forever. But then sit on it for a bit, and then once you've got some practice under your belt, then you can kind of go into it. There are lots of other pieces and things that you can paint to try out. Like you could go online and take a look for armor cast. You know, you want to like be a little careful with resin because, like I said, you want to have to kind of scrub it. You wash it, you put it in like some water, just a little touch of like dishwashing soap. You take an old brush, old like toothbrush that you're not going to use in your mouth anymore, and you try to brush the stuff off it, rinse it off, let it dry, and then if you have to sand or anything like that, make sure you wear a mask because the particles can be a little problematic. But you can get all kinds of cool stuff. You don't usually have to build too much of this stuff. You can paint it up pretty easily, and you can learn a lot of things about painting terrain from kits like that if you find them. So let me see here. Talking about modeling with a bunch of different programs. I do a lot of organic modeling with Rhino. Is that still around? I don't know. Devin says, I'm actually doing an OpenForge design in Blender while I'm listening to the show. Okay, well, that's fun. JP Got Rockets says, hills are easy to make. You could make a barrow as well. Another thing, you can make a graveyard and cut out tombstones from cereal box or even foam core. Yeah, that's true too. What else is good? Foam core sometimes has got that sort of foamy middle part that's sometimes problematic. If you're trying to make like tombstones, what would be better for tombstones? That's a good question. I mean, if you want them to be nice and thick, you know, I could tell you to maybe try styrene, but that's gonna be really thick stuff to cut that small. That's a good question. I should think about what would be good to make. What to make a little tiny scale model, 28mm size. Gravestones. I wonder if that'd be something to 3D print. They might look weird then, but it might be something to look into. Torch says, I'm supposed to look into joining a gym today, but I'm thinking of sitting on my butt and painting instead. You know, I think exercise is important. I don't have a gym. I just I try to walk a lot or bike. So look into walking. It's pretty good for you, and you don't have to pay generally much money, except maybe if you like don't have any good walking shoes and you're getting blisters, then you know maybe do that. But that's pretty much about it. What terrain that you don't have that you really want to work on? Asks the Chronic Toast. What terrain that I don't have? I would like more kind of like Shadow Armageddon / Necromunda / you know, like I would like a little bit more kind of three-dimensional sort of walkway kind of terrain. When Shadow Armageddon first came out, Mini Wargaming had a bunch of really cool battle reports on really nice boards, like really good, like lots of three-dimensional stuff to crawl around on and whatever, and that was really cool. I'm starting on that. Like I bought the set that came, the big box set for for Shadow Armageddon that has all the cool terrain in it, and I've added a couple of pieces of that. I've made my own like walkways that look like they've been made out of like salvaged parts, and but I would like a little bit more stuff for that, I think, because I think that I could do some potentially cool battle reports, maybe, depending on me. I could try to do some cool battle reports on that to some degree and see how that works out. So yeah, that kind of stuff. Good starter terrain, the ruins of Osgiliath. That's true, the Noob Painter. I know that you were trying to get me to say Osgiliath, and I think I got it right. But it's also a pretty nice little easy, fun to build starter terrain set. I have a painted set at the studio, actually, which I really like the paint job that I did on that, actually. That turned out well, so yes. If you can find that stuff, the ruins of Osgiliath are also very cool. Luis, I'm probably screwing that up. Adam, what about Hearst Arts molds? Yeah, I have 4 Hearst Arts molds, and like one is like flagstone walls, the second one is ruined flagstone walls, and those are fun. And then I have 2 other sets. One is like ruined brick walls, and the other one I think is sandbags. Those last 2 I bought at Gen Con the last time I was there. Last year? Yeah, it was last year. Whereas the ruined the flagstone walls and the ruined flagstone walls I bought years ago at Gen Con, I think. Yes. And I've never ordered anything actually from the website. I've only ever just bought stuff at Gen Con. Just because, I don't know, it saves on shipping, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I have a bunch of either Merlin's Magic or Hydrocal, some sort of dental plaster. So I do want to start producing more bricks. I've got a bunch, but I want to produce more because I would like to start trying to make some a little more fantasy stuff. Not with the obviously the regular brick or the sandbags. The sandbags I probably shouldn't have bought that one. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just I don't need that many sandbags. But the flagstone walls and the ruined flagstone walls, those are awesome. Those are some of my favorites. So. Melody Dawn says, walking is great. I used to walk a couple miles twice a day after my ex-wife and I split up. Of course, I made the mistake to walk by a convenience store and buy booze on the back half of my walk. Well, yeah, that is a problem. I used to walk and then stop at the convenience store and buy Hostess fruit pies. Yeah, that was not a good idea. Kind of really defeats the purpose. But yeah, walking is like, especially because I can listen to music or podcasts and stuff like that, and it does help quite a bit. Yes. What else have we got here? So Hearst Arts, yep, we talked about that. Adam, do you still play Malifaux? We've got a group of people who started on that game, and I'm currently designing a bunch of markers for that. I haven't played it in quite a while. I've got a friend, he and his wife want to play, and they, I think, have each a crew now painted up. I'm not sure if they're painted or not, but I know they've purchased them, and I think that they're built. I don't know if they're painted or not. But yeah, we keep talking about it. And I've got another friend of mine who lives down in the Milwaukee area who taught me how to play. And I'd like to get him hooked up with them so he can teach them how to play, because I still think knows it way better than I do by a long shot. So, yeah, I think that, I mean, the models are great. Sometimes they're a little hard to build because they are so dynamic and there's so many little tiny pieces. But when you get one put all together, their models look amazing. They're easily, I think, as nice in some situations as Games Workshop's plastics. So, but they're very dynamically posed, and there's lots of little parts. So they sometimes can be a little difficult to build in some situations. Nonetheless, I'm glad that game system's still doing real well, and they're now expanding into, they're actually starting to build more of an army-style game called The Other Side. Which I think is coming out this fall. I saw it a little bit again this year at ACD Game Day. They're a little behind on it, I think. Like, I feel like they wanted to have it released a little bit sooner, but they're getting close. And then there was, if you watched the Instagram recently that I do, they also showed off some new plastic buildings that are going to be coming from Weird, which is the company that makes Malifaux, and they're really super cool looking too. So you'll see stuff like that probably in a lot of people's Malifaux boards coming up, because they're like, some of them are ruined and some of them aren't, but they're just very interesting. But again, same kind of hard plastic. Yeah, definitely. Dewey Hanks asks, or says, must admit I'm still old school for making terrain. 3mm plastic board or balsa, and it works for me. Cheap to replace when it gets broken too. Yeah, I do that too. It's just that there's times when there's like parts that I would really like to design and then print versus like try to build. Especially if I have to do it, like, let's say I want to have like really nice looking like window treatments, which sounds weird at this point, but like, you know, like you see, how many times do you see someone who makes a ruined corner of a building, and they do it out of foam core? It's that iconic, oh, it's the ruined corner of a building that we use on every, 40K board. But the windows are just cut out rectangles. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing going on there. Now go look at like a regular house or a regular building. It's almost never just a cut out rectangle. There's usually something going on, attached to the window, or something across the top, a piece or a bottom sill or something like that. And so that's cool, but if you have to like hand make each one of those to put on each window, it gets problematic. Now you could hand make one, and then you could cast it, you know, so that you have multiples, so you can put them on all of the windows to give them. Because really, what makes terrain look amazing is embellishment. It's really like you can make something that's very well painted and very well put together, but if it's not embellished, it doesn't look good. You know what I mean? It just doesn't look real. Buildings are almost never just straight flat. You know, there's always something else going on there. So, yeah, so being able to just say, I want to 3D print and design these little windowy pieces that I'm going to stick on each one of the windows and then do that and make it just look that much more detailed, I think that that's what one of the benefits is to 3D printing. I mean, 3D printing the entire building, that's difficult. You know, you can do it, certainly, but it's maybe at that point maybe a little bit more expensive. It depends on the building, too. Some buildings are very difficult to build and would be easier to 3D print. Hang on. Rustling. So, like, this is a 3D printed building that I bought at Adepticon. There's more to it, too. There's the bottom part down here as well. I can't get it out of the box. It's stuck. Yeah, anyway. There's more to it, but it's stuck. This would be very kind of difficult to build with, like, foam core and balsa. You know what I mean? So when you want to get into stuff like this, then the 3D printing makes a lot of sense. But, you know, there's a lot of work. Like, if you look at the surface, you can see that there's like some sort of 3D printerness going on. With a sci-fi building, I don't think it's as big of a deal because you can say, well, look, the building was 3D printed. Like, you know, in the future, they don't just like sit there and actually build stuff out of like wood and joists and, you know, nails. They, you know, they're going to build a building. They send a robot crew over there, and the robot crew 3D prints the whole building. So that's why it looks like that. You know, you can get away with that. At least that's my plan for getting away with it. But yeah, so anyway, what was I talking about? All right, so yeah, I'm a big fan still of also completely hand building in some situations, especially if it's more of a fantasy thing generally, because it looks a little bit nicer. But for sci-fi stuff, I don't have a problem 3D printing the building. That all being said, I think 3D printing the embellishment parts that make the buildings look that much nicer, that I think is really the best. If you can pull that off, that's the best plan. Making, like, if you're doing like a Tudor-style house, it's a real pain to make Tudor-style windows to put into each of the windows that go into that house. But if you design one once, or you buy a file or something like that, and you 3D print it, or you have a friend 3D print it, or you go into Shapeways and get stuff 3D printed, you can then just place those windows everywhere you need to with the lattice work and all that cool stuff, and then it just makes that piece just pop that much nicer, as opposed to just like, oh yeah, here's a wooden windowsill. And then you had to do each one separately. That's kind of a pain. Alrighty. What else have we got? People talking about walking and losing weight. That's also good. Building muscle burns more calories. Also, adjusting your diet is critical. These are also true. Dustin says, good morning from Camp Williams, Utah. Good morning. I'll be in Utah in late September, early October? Yes, I'll be there for Valhalla. Looking forward to it. I've been to Valhalla now 2 times or 3 times? 2 or 3 times. It's a lot of fun. What else have we got here? Yeah, there was a lot of rustling. Sorry. Yeah, that's just, I've got these plastic bags that I was digging out the train from. Devin Jones says, printable scenery has some really great stuff for making full buildings. Basically 2" by 3" by, or sorry, 2" by 2" by 4" tall modular tiles that you can glue together and making a building with all kinds of great exteriors. Yeah, I mean, a lot of companies are doing that because it's really, I mean, think about it. You have an infinite amount of inventory. You know what I mean? You're never going to, like, you've designed these shapes. They can be shipped to anybody instantly basically for free, and you'll never run out because you're just designing 3D shapes for people to buy and then use. So that's it's like about 5-6 years ago, maybe more, when D&D 3.5 was all the rage. There were a lot of companies that were just making PDFs of stuff for you to use because it was the open gaming license, so it was legal for them to make, like, they would make like these like $2 PDFs. It'd be like, oh, 21 magical shields that you could use in your campaign. So then you as the GM just buys this thing for $2, and anytime you need to use a magical shield in your game, rather than having to make up one, you've got 21 of them already made up. You'd be like, oh, this one's going to fit with what I want to do. Cool, bang. And you do that. So those companies were producing all this stuff because, again, it was digital, free shipping, and like, it was no upfront cost, any of that kind of jazz. Just made a lot of sense. You're seeing a lot of that now in 3D printing because if you know how to make the designs and you have that skill and the software to do it, you can crank out tons of cool designs and people will buy them because then that way they don't have to come up with the design and then they can just print it because they got a printer and boom. It's going to be very interesting to see how our overall society kind of works as things become a little bit more digital even that way. You know what I mean? So anyway, Groves Russell says, surprised Diesel doesn't come to see what's rustling. I think he's upstairs sleeping now, probably. He's hanging up on my wife. What else? We've got Adam, you should come to an Australian convention. I mean, that'd be cool. Man. I've never been on a plane anywhere near that long. My longest plane ride ever is maybe 4 hours. Like, coming back from Seattle. No, going to Seattle. Going to Seattle from where I live takes roughly 4 hours. Coming back takes about 3.5 hours. Now you'd say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it's something to do with the jet stream. Flying against the wind versus flying with the wind. So there's that. But yeah, that's probably my longest. I mean, it's like you're on the plane to Australia for a week, isn't it? No, I think it's like a day. But still, it's a really long time. So yeah, we will see. That's I'm amazed by people who make the trip like frequently. I'm amazed by people who make the trip sometimes at all, honestly. I don't like to travel. I really don't. If I could just teleport places, that'd be so much better. Turns out I can't. All right, let's see here. DJ Todd P. Harris says, I use paper models a lot for my Zombicide Walking Dead games. I just modify my buildings to be collapsible. Yeah, I mean, there are definite ways you can do that as long as you don't mind like the look of it. Like, I think the aesthetic, especially in a game like Zombicide, because it is basically just like you're on a printed mat anyway, having some 3D buildings that are basically just printed paper, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it works out just fine. I think if you spend a bunch of time and effort on like cool like rocks and hills and trees and all that stuff, and then throw like a printed building in there that's just like kind of a box made out of paper, then that sometimes can look a little weird. But you know, it depends. It's up to you. It's up to you. For me, I would be like, no, I probably want the building to look a little bit more realistic. But I'm not going to tell people they're wrong if they want to go that way. Lord knows it's way cheaper and quicker. That's for damn sure. So there's that. Looking forward to Origins. What days will you be there? Says DJ Todd P. Harris. All of them, I think. I think we're getting there like, I think it's the 13th to the 17th is when I'm going to be technically there. I'm not sure when the dealer area is open. I don't know if it's open on Thursday. I'm pretty sure it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but I think it might be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So yeah, looking forward to that because, like I said, I haven't been to Origins since 1995. So I'm betting it's a bit different. Adam, who's your little friend in the background? I know you've probably explained this multiple times in the past, but I hardly ever watched the show and I forgot to ask before. This over here, that is my wife's cello case. So in there is a cello, and that's the top of the cello. The eyes, so it used to just sit there with no eyes. Hang on, I'm going to do this. It used to just sit there like that, right? And VJ Morph from Australia mailed me some stick-on eyes so that I could put them on there, and some other stuff. It sent me a lovely can koozie from Australia and a Space Marine hero and a piece of terrain and everything like that. But then the stick-on eyes have been on the cello case most of the time. My wife has to take the cello case to go do cello things from time to time, and then she takes the eyes off, and then she sticks them up here on this booze hutch that we have back here with a bunch of knickknacks and junk on top. And then when she comes home, either one of us usually then puts them back on so that, you know, I've got a little watcher while I'm doing the show. Let me see here. People talking about all that drumming must have tuckered him out. Yes, probably. He is kind of tubby. Brant, have you ever read William Gibson's novel All Tomorrow's Parties? There's a bit of the 3D printing theme in it and his interesting take on it. I don't remember if I have or not. I've read a bunch of William Gibson. Like there's the early stuff, Neuromancer, you know, all that kind of Count Zero, all that jazz. But then the one with the woman who's allergic to logos, which I can never remember the damn name of, that one is one of my favorites. I don't think I've read All Tomorrow's Parties. I'll have to look into it and see if I have or not. There was a really interesting book that I think Neil Stephenson wrote called the Diamond Age, and in the Diamond Age, like nano wasn't like 3D printing; it was like nano building stuff, like from garbage, basically. These little tiny nanobots would take apart garbage and to recycle it, would be like, I need these atoms and I'm going to turn them into something else, other molecules of something else. And so like if you were a homeless person, you could just walk up to a kiosk and say, I need a blanket, and they would just give you a blanket for free because it was just basically recycling garbage and it cost almost nothing to do it. And so there were a lot of like, you could go up and get specific things, but those you have to pay for because they needed different types of materials or they were just more expensive to whatever. But they were just free things that you could just get. You just walk up to the kiosk and be like, I'm cold, I need a blanket, boop, and it would just kick out a blanket. That was, I think, an interesting concept. And because at that point, people would have these devices in their homes and pay for them and whatever, but there was nothing that you couldn't build almost. As long as it could be designed, it was, you know, if you were like, I want a diamond the size of my fist, they were like, okay, great. Diamonds are basically made out of carbon. That's most garbage. We can easily do that. And at that point, then, you know, things like diamonds aren't really important anymore because they're not rare because you can build them and, you know, that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. I think it was called the Diamond Age. I'm pretty sure the book was called The Diamond Age. And that was pretty cool. Like people would come together, like buildings would be built while you watched. Like nanobots, like people would have like a big party and sit around and watch like a new skyscraper go up over the course of like half of an afternoon, because it would just be all these nanobots just building this building as it went up, and you know, people would be sitting around having drinks and watching it go, and that's how things worked. You know, it's kind of like the opposite now, like where everyone like shows up to watch buildings get destroyed and then fall down. This was the opposite thing. It was a cool book. I liked it. Captain Obvious. Obius? I'm not sure if I'm spelling that or pronouncing that properly. I don't like most of the designs for terrain online. They mostly print the full piece or really big sections. You could design the models in pieces for a faster print. I mean, yeah, I suppose. I mean, you know, if it's a faster print, but you got to print more pieces, I mean, overall the time is the same. You either have to print more pieces, which go quickly, but you have more of them to do, or you print less pieces, but it takes a long time. It might come out in the wash. I don't know. Downside is that if you print for 6 hours on a piece and then at the end it gets screwed up, then that stinks. Whereas if you had to print a piece for an hour and it got screwed up, you didn't lose as much time. I'll give you that. I haven't had too many pieces like screw up. Like honestly, like this thing that I showed you guys earlier, the statue dude, he turned out pretty well, except, and I don't think you'll be able to see it, like the bottom of his gun there, if it ever focuses. What if I do this? What if I do that? Anyway, the bottom of the gun, which you can't see because it's not in focus, it's a little fuzzy. You can kind of see it there. And it was because it was on the bottom, you know, like there were supports sticking up all over. If you go look on, well, if you're a Patreon supporter, there was a picture on Patreon of this guy taken directly off the printer, and there are these supports that the slicing software puts in so that parts that hang over don't just fall off as you're printing. Something happened here, and it did not line up right until it was getting a little bit further along. The top of the gun works fine, the bottom is bad, which is one of the reasons why I'm going to cut this arm off and make it look like it fell off and landed on the ground next to him, because he's a beat-up old statue, and then this fuzzy part can sit in the rubble and you won't see the fuzzy part. That's the plan, at least. People are going to have spray painted on this and stuff. It's going to be kind of hopefully pretty cool. But yeah, this piece, and it's hard to see because it's white and then the light, and like, I don't know if you can see the detail, not really. Anyway, I'll probably, once I get working on it, I'll either make a video about it or I'll at least post pictures and stuff like that on Instagram and whatnot. But yeah, that can be a problem sometimes with 3D printing, is when, you know, if it's a really long print, it could get screwed up at some point. And you can't sit there and watch like, it's a 15-hour print, and you're going to sit there and watch it the entire time. That's kind of difficult. So anyway, people talking about how diamonds aren't actually rare. That's true. What else have we got here? Jason Miller says, super excited to meet you at Origins. Well, yeah, definitely stop by the Game 4 booth. Yeah, I will be there probably most of the time. Frankie Lee Bailey says, there are small homes in Brazil being 3D printed with a cement 3D printer, so we aren't really that far off of 3D printed buildings. The tech is there, it just needs to be scaled up. This is true. I've also heard of 3D printed hotels, maybe possibly in like Norway or somewhere. One of the first 3D printed buildings I heard about was a guy in Minnesota in the United States, which is not that far from here. And he is an immigrant of some sort, works in construction, maybe owns his own construction company. But he has like he had like in the interview he had kind of a thicker accent. But he owns this company and he's very industrious, like he's super smart. And he was just like, I like 3D printing, and I thought I could use that. And so he built a castle. If you just look for Minnesota 3D printed castle, you'll probably find it. And he built a 3D printed castle for his kids, like a play castle in the backyard. And so he built these like scaffoldings and a